Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Along with Jim Geraghty of National Review, I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Jim, I'm not sure if we have good, bad, and crazy martinis today or good, crazy, and crazy martinis today. But either way, we've got plenty of good fodder for folks today. We thank those of you who were with us yesterday for what may have been our longest, but perhaps most compelling Three Martini Lunch in quite a while. A lot to cover yesterday, a lot to cover today. We're sponsored today by Stamps.com. Right now, Three Martini Lunch listeners can get a special offer from Stamps.com that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. And you'll see for yourself why over 700,000 small businesses use Stamps.com. You just need to go to Stamps.com, go to the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in Three Martini, all one word. Much more on that a little bit later in the podcast. And Jim, for our good martini, we head to the category of lessons we all need to learn. And it's New York State. Governor Cuomo is not happy. He's got a massive shortfall, and he's blaming the Trump tax reform package from 2017 for it. Here's News 12 Long Island with the story.
It literally restructured the economy to help red states at the cost of blue states.
Governor Cuomo says New York is now paying the price for President Trump's signature legislative achievement. The governor announced today that New York is facing a $2.3 billion shortfall. Cuomo blames the Republican-backed federal tax law that caps state and local tax deductions at $10,000. He says it's prompting many of the state's richest residents, who pay 46% of the state's income tax, to either change their primary residence or leave New York entirely.
$2.3 billion as a drop at this point in revenues is as serious as a heart attack.
So, Jim, you and I talked about this a lot during the tax debate. You explained how high tax states like New Jersey and New York, California, a lot of folks who are wealthy could end up paying higher taxes because the deductions are being capped now for high state taxes. But for the people who constantly harp that the rich don't pay their fair share and now they have to pay a little bit more, the liberals are suddenly shocked to find out that these people don't actually want to pay high taxes and they will leave. So lesson learned, hopefully.
Yeah, I was going to say, Greg, it's worth remembering. At one point in the tax bill, they were going to eliminate the deduction entirely. Now, people who remember our post-election discussions, I said this may have hurt the Republicans in those suburban House districts in New York and New Jersey and California and places like that. I think all in all, the 10,000 cap was a reasonable compromise. I might have bumped it up a little bit higher, but the vast majority of Americans are not in, like, let's say 45 states pay a combined property tax, state and local taxes of less than $10,000. This is not going to hit a whole lot of people. But there are 4 or 5 states where it is going to hit them really hard. New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California, and maybe we can debate 1 or 2 others, maybe Connecticut. But New York was the classic one that was going to get hammered by this. But, you know, there's a real simple answer for this. If Cuomo and New York's government feel like because of this elimination of this deduction, people's overall tax burden is going to go too high, and that's to lower the taxes. One of the things that's really fascinating with this, he said it was $2.6 billion, he says it's as serious as a heart attack. Well, this is like blaming the potato chip company for you having a heart attack. It does have something to do with the fact that you keep eating all those potato chips or, other health factors and things like that. The other thing which is mind-boggling about this, Greg, is that this is occurring as the national economy is doing really darn well. And as far as I can followed it, New York State's economy seems to be doing pretty well by historical standards as well. Unemployment is low. People are working. They're paying those income taxes. This should not be a super-duper mega drop in state tax revenue. And the fact that it has indicates that the state of New York has now become seriously uncompetitive compared to other states, that even if you're super wealthy, the tax burden is just becoming too much of a pain in the neck. You just don't want to deal with it. It's just too easy to move to, say, Florida, which has no income taxes. Make that your primary residence. In case you're wondering, you have to spend more than half the year in your primary residence, and they do check out these sorts of things. So don't think that, I'll buy a shack in Florida and then I won't have to pay any state taxes there anymore. You do have to spend at least a good chunk of the year over there. But if you're wealthy enough, you can have multiple residences. Maybe you're going from place to place, traveling around a lot. Maybe it makes sense for that. It's very revealing that Andrew Cuomo finds himself in this situation. His first instinct is blame the Trump administration, blame national tax policy, and that his own state's policies have nothing to do with the fact that people are fleeing his state in droves, apparently.
For years, the federal tax code has obscured how much we're soaking you with taxes. How dare they make you realize how much you're paying me?
Look, this just shows honesty is not the best policy.
That's right. Well, if you need to mail things from your low tax state to your high tax state or vice versa, Stamps.com is definitely the way to go. Postage rates going up again, but thankfully, Stamps.com can ease that pain with big discounts off post office retail rates. And you can do it with Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you save 5 cents off every first-class stamp and up to 40% off priority mail. That kind of savings really adds up, especially for your small business. Plus, Stamps.com is completely online, which saves you time. No more inconvenient trips to the post office.
Stamps.com automatically calculates and prints the exact amount of postage that you need for every letter or package you send. You will never overpay or underpay again. Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your fingertips. You can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your own computer and printer. Stamps.com makes it easy. They send you a free digital scale, which will automatically calculate the exact postage you need. Stamps.com will even help you decide the best class of mail based on your needs. And finally, Stamps.com saves you money. They give you postage discounts that you can't get at the post office, including 5 cents off of every first-class stamp. Anything you can do at the post office, you can now do from your desk for less.
And right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a digital scale. See for yourself why over 700,000 small businesses use Stamps.com. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in 3 Martini, one word, that's Stamps.com, enter 3 Martini. All right, Jim, on to our second martini. I guess we'll let it be in the eye of the beholder whether this is bad or crazy, but we go back to Virginia. In fact, our last 2 martinis are in Virginia again. Ralph Northam, as of this recording here late Tuesday morning, is still the governor of Virginia, but his popularity has plummeted. That's not bad or crazy. Pre-controversy, his approval rating was 48%, 26% disapproval, and 26% aren't paying attention. Post-controversy, 29% approval, 48% disapproval, and 23% still don't know. But here's the thing. Before the controversy, the Democrats gave him a 70% approval rating with just a 7% disapproval. After the controversy, 50% of Democrats still approve of the job Ralph Northam is doing, with 25% saying they disapprove and 24% don't know or have no opinion. So, Jim, everyone has shifted a little bit here. Independents went from plus 18 to minus 29. Republicans went from 31% approval to 15. But the fact that 2-1 Democrats still like this guy is pretty surprising.
Yeah, and I tweeted that out yesterday, and somebody said that tweet is extremely misleading because it dropped in other groups. Yes, that's the point. My point is that 50% of Republicans still went down. Democrats don't get credit for independents and Republicans deciding they don't like the governor anymore. And look, there were a couple of people who might argue this was all a good portion of the poll was done after the announcement. It broke Friday, came out yesterday around midday. Some might argue whether voters need a little more time to digest this news or to take it in. But, Greg, this was not exact. Both you and I live in Virginia. I think a good chunk of our listenership probably lives in Virginia. This was not obscure. You'd have to go to the New York Times to find it on the bottom of page A17. And then maybe you could say, but again, this was big news. Not just the Richmond area, not just the D.C. news area. This was a big deal. Your governor might have dressed up like a Klansman. It's not the sort of thing that people say, no big deal. So the suspicion, it'd be interesting to see, let's go a week or two. Maybe the Democratic numbers will come down a bit, or maybe they'll come down a lot. Maybe it's genuinely a chunk of Democrats really somehow managed to not hear or see this news for the entirety of the weekend. I think what's probably a little more likely is straight up partisan, motivated reasoning. Well, he's still my guy, or this is no big deal. It's a yearbook picture from 35 years ago. Get off his back. He's doing a lot for the state, blah, blah, blah. Motivated reasoning is a hell of a drug, as they say. And it's one of those things where, Democrats, we see this in every scandal. Republicans don't like to denounce Republican officials. They like to give them the benefit of the doubt. They like to say, there's some reasonable explanation. This is some sort of mix-up, And my suspicion is you're seeing the same thing from Democrats. Now, it's really fascinating, and this kind of leads into our next Martini, but just the observation that, the Democratic Party, it's become a common cliche. If a Republican did it, how would, Democrats react? They'd, their heads would explode. They'd be furious. There are lots of cases where, Democrats who insisted that Bill Clinton's behavior should slide and it wasn't a big deal and it was a private matter, all of a sudden jumped all over Donald Trump when the accusations came out against him and other Republicans. Look, as I wrote earlier today, I suppose it's theoretically possible that everything Ralph Northam is saying is true, that he is not in the picture, he never wore the hood, he didn't select the picture, that the picture ended up on his page either with a mix-up or some sort of, mean prank. I suppose it's possible he doesn't know, that he never saw the yearbook, that he doesn't know how he got the nickname Coon Man and why. And that the worst thing he ever did was put on shoe polish to imitate Michael Jackson in a dance contest back in 1984. And if that really is the case, well, then I guess if that really is the truth, and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, then I guess the governor should fight it. You can probably sense that I'm skeptical that that's an accurate assessment of Northam's life, but all right, fine. I also think, by the way, it's very clear, if it's not true and he's lying right now, Greg, well, then he doesn't have the ethics to, that he's going to resign and shame or I'm going to hurt my agenda or, I'm going to hurt my party. He might as well stay in there because as long as you're governor, you still have the veto, you still have the power to make appointments, you still have the clemency and pardons and all the traditional powers of it. If you leave now, you're disgraced. 3 years from now, if you stay in office, maybe people have forgotten about this, or maybe they'll believe your explanation that you had no idea this stuff was going on. I think he's going to stick around. He's going to try to stick around. And the other wrinkle in all of this is that, at least if you look at the definition of the Virginia state constitution, Greg, I don't know about you, I was really disappointed that being an idiot was not listed as part of the grounds for impeachment of the governor. I myself might be introducing that as proposing a state constitutional amendment saying, if the governor turns out to be an idiot, you're allowed to impeach him even if he hasn't committed a crime. Because nothing is described as is a crime. And that's kind of what the state constitution lists as the criteria for that. It's not an abuse of power. He's not neglecting his duties. He's incompetent in his duties, but he's not neglecting them. And so now we're in a situation where he probably believes he can tough this out. And if this poll is accurate, maybe he can, Greg.
Well, we talked about the governor. Let's talk about the lieutenant governor. We mentioned it briefly yesterday, but it's getting more attention, and now that story has taken on a new dimension, which means it might not be going anywhere for at least a little while. Fox News reporting, along with many others, the woman accusing Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of sexual assault has reportedly retained the law firm that represented Christine Blasey Ford, the California professor who, of course, accused now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh of pinning her to a bed and trying to undress her at a party decades ago. The Associated Press and other outlets reported that the woman who has accused Fairfax of sexual assault during the 2004 Democratic National Convention has retained Katz, Marshall, and Banks and is consulting about next steps. Deborah Katz represented Ford during Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing as she eventually testified about the alleged assault. The involvement of Katz, Marshall, and Banks suggests the accuser could be preparing for more formal action, and politically their involvement could put implicit pressure on Democrats, many of whom sided with Blasey Ford over Kavanaugh, to take the claim seriously. So, Jim, just when we think these sordid stories have gotten as bizarre as they're going to, we're not even close.
Walking through this, Greg, it's worth noting the Washington Post heard about these allegations shortly after Fairfax took office, or I guess shortly before inauguration. They did their digging, that this was in Justin Fairfax's account, this was a consensual encounter. In her account, this was not. This was back in 2004, which would make it about 15 years ago. Despite what Fairfax had said yesterday, that they found indiscrepancies and holes in her story, they said they didn't. They just simply couldn't verify any of it, couldn't verify his account either. This is at this point very much a he said, she said. But once you hire Ford's lawyers, you're kind of implicitly, inviting people to make the comparison. And we all recall from the controversy about Brett Kavanaugh last year that, Ms. Ford did not have any corroborating witnesses. She listed 4 people who said they did not have any memory of that party at all. That she could not say the specific time or date. She could not say the specific place. And Kavanaugh offered that, full spectrum denial, not just that he had never done these sorts of actions, not only that he had not ever attended a party like this with Ford, he had never met her. Right. So that's about as blanket a denial as you possibly can get. In this one, we know they were in the same room, the same place, and that something happened between them, either consensual sexual interaction or not consensual sexual interaction. And that is that's a very big question. And Democrats are going to have to explain if they say, oh, I believe Ford, but I don't believe this accuser. They'll have to explain why. And the most natural, a lot of people will naturally suspect that the primary motivation in their reasoning here is partisanship, that they believe accusations against Republicans and Republican-leaning figures, and they do not believe accusations against Democrats and Democrat-leaning figures. And that's no way to go through life, Greg.
No, not at all. And the fact that this law firm has been retained means I'm guessing there'll at least be a public relations aspect to this relationship now between the Katz firm and this accuser, who I believe is a Stanford professor. So we're going to be hearing about this quite a bit more, I think.
Yeah, and one last thing I'll throw in. I don't know how much this should count, but the understanding is that this Stanford professor, she's had her picture taken with Nancy Pelosi. She is a left-of-center person, or believed to be a left-of-center person. So the idea that partisan animosity would be a motivator for her does not appear to be at play. Now, is this just an interesting wrinkle there? And then you say, oh, why would somebody lie about this? Sometimes people do lie about this. Not all the time, not often. But it does happen, and it's one factor that people might point to as a reason here does not appear to be at play in these particular circumstances.
Crazy end to last week, a pretty crazy start to this week, Jim. We'll see where it goes tomorrow. And, of course, we got the State of the Union tonight. I'm sure you've got your bingo cards or drinking game or however you do it. Over-under on number of guests in the gallery, number of standing ovations.
Greg, I got to get the Hopsy machine back.
That's going to be fun. But find a way to make the State of the Union interesting. It's not always easy. I'm sure.
It's just so late this year. It was that between the government shutdown and the groundhog saw his shadow, so we get 6 more weeks before the State of the Union. Is that how it worked?
No, we got to shoehorn it in between shutdowns, I think, is the way
That's
works.
Right. There we go. Yeah. Oh, can't wait till that comes back.
Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And do not forget about the fantastic offer from Stamps.com that will greatly save you time and money for you and your small business. Right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners can get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and the digital scale. Go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in 3 Martini. And tune in Wednesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.